Peace, prosperity, and praise, good people. Welcome. Come on in, everybody. Oh, I'm so excited to be recording this video right now. Y'all don't even know what has taken place to bring me to this moment in time. There is so much going through my body, so much going through my head right now, and I'm just so grateful to finally be doing this, to finally be recording this, to finally be meeting you all like this. This is our formal introduction. I want to be up close and personal with you all. I want to be vulnerable and open. I want you all to really understand who I am as a creative, as a healer, and come along on this journey with me for our self-development, for our creative and spiritual development, and for our collective ascension. This is me. My name is Diamond Elizabeth Watson. I am the CEO and founder of Passion Projects for the People. This organization was founded in PG County, Maryland, where I'm originally from. Yes, I'm a PG County girl. If you know, you know. Okay. And this work really is about the safekeeping, the celebration, and the elevation of our bodies and spirits as Melanites. I do this work for my people. And I really am inspired by the story of Sankofa. I really am thinking about this idea of returning, of going back to move forward. And I'll talk more about that a little bit later. But I really just wanted to introduce myself as the founder and CEO of this organization that is a movement-based rituals for spiritual healing. Spiritual healing with modern dance. That's what it is. And through dance, through community care, through these like workshops, these series, these opportunities to come together and to move our bodies together, we cultivate a culture of spiritual renewal. Yeah, this work is really important to me. And I sort of got here by an accident. So I want to talk a little bit about like where this business even came from. I want to talk a little bit about my inspiration. I want to talk about my journey a little bit. And so, Passion Projects for the People is about dance, is about using dance to heal ourselves, to heal our bodies, our minds, our spirits, and even our relationships as melanites, as melanated people. And when I started dance, I don't even know what that means because I was in the womb dancing. My family still talks about how before I even came into the physical world, I was a dancer. Um, and that's really precious to me, a really special story because there are some people who dance and there are some people who dance was thrust upon them. And I'm one of those people that I came into this lifetime with this work, with this talent. And so I started formal dance training when I was about 3, started with African tap, jazz, ballet in a non-conventional dance space. Like I think we started in like a garage or something. But I didn't know the difference. I was just like ready to move and ready to go and ready to learn. And so from about 3 years old to about maybe 7 or 8 years old, I was really just trying to figure out what this talent even was. Was this just about was it recreational or was it a passion? I'm a very competitive person. And so being in the dance classroom, I was like, oh, I want to be the best. I want to be number one. I want to have all the solos. I want to have all the parts. I'm a performer. And so I fell in love with the process. I had the pleasure of studying under some really amazing women, some amazing men, some amazing people really poured into me and my peers at that time. And so at about 8 years old, I decided, okay, this is what I want to do with my life. I'm a dancer. Of course, I had other interests around that time. I was also interested in like animals. I always had this kind of knack for care. I was one of those people in school that like I was the mama figure, even from a young age. Like people would come to me and ask me for assistance or just want me to be around. I found myself being supportive to several people when I was just young. And I even have memories, like I was so intuitive at a young age. Like I'd get into a conversation with somebody, or I'm sitting back and I'm observing the adults around me and I would pick up things intuitively. So I was quite tapped in as a young person, but I was a star. I was like, yeah, all that other stuff is cool, but I want to be the next Debbie Allen. I want to be the next Renee Robinson. She was my idol, Renee Robinson. I wanted to be just like her when I was a kid. She's also from DC. So there was that connection where it was like we were from the same place, we both looked the same, and I wanted her spot. That's how I was. I ended up going to Duke Ellington School of the Arts. I graduated class of 2016 from the dance department. I want to acknowledge our now beloved ancestor, Charles Augins. I also want to acknowledge Baba Melvin Deal and all of the people who really poured into me at Ellington. They really helped me frame my concept of what it meant to be a professional working artist. From there, I was committed, and so I ended up pursuing dance at undergraduate school. I graduated from University of the Arts 2020, BFA in dance under the leadership of Donna Faye Birchfield. And in 2020, we all experienced the global pandemic, and my trajectory changed for so many of us. I was slated to do company work. I was performing company work. I was dancing nationally as a professional. I had made it. And, what became interesting to me, something that kept coming up as I was studying in my junior and senior year at UArts, which UArts is no longer even in existence. My place of choice is no longer a choice. That's a story for another day. But in my junior and senior year of college, when I was experiencing more opportunities to perform as a professional, I kept finding myself kind of just not satisfied. The dream was here. I was booking the gigs. I was traveling. I was working with choreographers. And there was something about it that was limiting. I had grown used to the idea that I was someone's Barbie doll. As a professional artist, your job is to kind of mask yourself into a fantasy, into the idea or the vision of the choreographer. And I was quite skilled at this. Remember, I was determined to be a professional dancer from about the age of 7. So I knew what my job was, and I was quite skilled at that. But when you do that, and that's your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, when that is the way that you make your money, you learn right very quickly whether it's for you or not. And I thought it was for me. But I would get into the company structure, and I would just be there was something nagging at me from my spirit that I didn't understand. It wasn't until I had to stop dancing. I think in the height of the pandemic in 2020, this is about maybe summertime 2020, I had to stop. I had to just pause because things just weren't the way that I thought they were anymore. There weren't any gigs, there weren't any auditions, everything was done. And so I ended up in Mexico. I ended up in Mexico, which I think a lot of Black women did at the time. We were just there. We were traveling. We were being called to these different lands. And I ended up in Mexico. I ended up in a small town called Puerto Morelos in Quintana Roo. And it changed my life. There, I met Yemoja. There, I felt the presence of my ancestors. It was in Mexico that I was reintroduced to that version of myself that was incredibly intuitive, that was incredibly perceptive, and incredibly open to new things. And so, Spirit started talking to me that year. And that time in my life kind of spawned this new direction. And so when I was living abroad and I was experiencing nature in its pure form, when I stepped away from the city, all of these internal worlds started opening themselves to me. These avenues for expression. Um, I started tapping into my skills as a medium, as a channel, and started to have these interactions with people that were divine. And I was all of a sudden enamored with the kind of random, but also the specific design of my life, of my path, of my journey. And I had to let go of some things. And so I had to embrace the fact that I was a different person than even who I thought I was. And so, long story short, I keep playing with this kind of like intuitive wisdom. And I even toy with the idea of leaving dance completely. But there was all dance, it is me. I am dance. And so it was like, as I was learning more about my gifts as a healer, and as I was learning more about my lineage and about my family and about my birthright, I thought I would have to do away with dance completely. But my spirit team kept saying, bring the two together, bring the two together, bring the two together. And so, as a young kind of like shaman, I was like, I was listening, but not listening. I was like, maybe I was trying to be rebellious. And I would still end up back in someone's studio. I would still end up on some kind of project. I would still find myself dancing, even though I was trying to follow this path, even though I was trying to figure out what it meant to be a spiritualist. What did it mean to practice this kind of like live this spiritual lifestyle? And so I was dancing for another company. I was living away from the DMV. I was living in Seattle, Washington, where it's just gorgeous there. And I was having all of these like aha moments that, okay, I'm not meant to necessarily dance for somebody else, but I do know that I'm meant to dance. I do know that I'm meant to teach, although I'm not necessarily a classical traditional teacher. There's something that I'm supposed to give birth to on my own. And so I ended up leaving dance again, leaving the States again, and took myself to a secluded place where I could listen to the voice of God and understand it, interpret it in my body, and then figure out what was my next step. What am I meant to do in this time? I was in Costa Rica. I was in Limon, and I was serious. I was incredibly devoted to my assignment. I felt the call to really sit with this opportunity to reinvent myself, and I answered it. I did it. And it became clear to me that my abilities as a healer did need to be cultivated. I had to find kind of a path of study, which ended up being Ayurveda and yoga. And also, I could not leave dance out of it. No matter how hard I tried, dance was a part of what it is that I'm meant to do here in this lifetime. And so, some way or another, I started offering classes online. I started doing like one-to-one privates with dance students that I knew in the States, dancers who were studying in ballet and modern and traditional technique. I would kind of market myself as a private teacher, and I started getting clients, and that started working for me. I was like, okay, maybe there is something that I can bring to these individual students. And then I started doing like sistership circles. I was like, but I'm really interested in working with adult women. I'm really interested in working with people who are influencing our community on a day-to-day basis. And so it's women. And so I started doing these circles. I started getting trained to hold circle. And I started growing in my voice as a leader, as a spiritual leader, even though I didn't really consider myself that at the time. It was kind of evolving. I was just trying things. And so I remember my auntie, who is a business mentor of mine, and also someone who has just inspired me my whole life. She said, "John, man, people want to see you dance. Like, this is cool, but we want to see you dance. We want to be dancing with you." And so I was like, okay, I got to figure out a way that I can still talk, still discuss, still have discourse around the things that are happening to our bodies in our bodies and in our homes, in our families. There is a way to have this conversation and also dance. Also give the people what they want, honey. And Passion Projects for the People was born. And I really feel that it is a gift from the divine. I really feel that my assignment, my blueprint as a person in this lifetime has to do with training and providing space for exploration through movement. The premise of all of my dance work is about awakening to your own creative genius. I'm not here to shape you to be Misty Copeland. In fact, I hope you never become that, because there's only one Misty and there will not be another. And that's fine. There's just you and there's just me. There's only one of us. And what is so beautiful about dance is that no one looks the same. And so when you come to a Passion Projects for the People space, a spiritual healing with modern dance experience, it's not about how high your leg can go, but more so how deeply can you listen to the songs of your heart. I talk about the heart song. I talk about quieting the conscious mind enough to bring forward the true genius that comes from within. And so I try to frame all of my class material around this, around being comfortable with your own genius, and how true it is that when you become comfortable with your own self, your true self, that you can become comfortable with the ones around you. I'm all about this sense of collective ascension, and it really does start with one. And I'm especially interested in working with women and working with families, partners, so that we can keep doing this work for our children for generations and generations. So, I talked a little bit about Sankofa earlier, and I kind of want to close with this story, the story of Sankofa. It is from the Akan people, and the story talks about a bird that was from a small village, and in this village, everybody loved to see this bird coming. You walk down the road, hey, there's the Sankofa bird. Oh, how beautiful you are. Thank you, Sankofa, for gracing us with your presence today. Thank you, Sankofa, for coming my way. You are such a beautiful bird. You're so beautiful. And, Sankofa got a little bit like full of himself. Sankofa was like, oh yeah, that's how y'all feeling? Okay, well, let me go and spread my beauty to other places. And so Sankofa left his village. Sankofa left his own village and traveled to another place to see if he could bring his beauty to another village. And when he arrived, he was not met with the same energy. Sankofa bird, you ugly than a mug. Where this bird come from? I ain't never seen a bird look like that. All scraggly and all that. They was talking mad junk about Sankofa in this new village that he found himself. Beat him up so bad, beat him down, had him feeling so down about himself. Sankofa was like, oh, you can forget this. And marched himself right on back down to his village and said, this is where I belong, with people who love me, where I need to learn how to love myself and not rely on other people's opinions of me. This is the story of Sankofa. It's always a good idea to go back to the source. And so I bring this story up because a lot of the things that I try to teach and try to share, the wisdom that I try to share with the dance participants who come to my space, I'm not doing nothing new. In fact, we were all born with DNA coding that allows us to access this mastery, this genius. We were born to express, to create, and to share at a high level. It is always a good idea to return to the source of who you are, to return to the well of your spirit and say, this is what I choose. It is always important to go back home. And that's what I have decided to do, to open up space, to hold space for people to return home. And I hope that you will come along this journey with me. In fact, I know you will. I have trust and I have faith that I'm not here on accident, that this message, that this medicine is for somebody. I'm just happy to finally be in the fullness of all that I am to be able to give it to you. And so, thank you for taking the time to listen to this video. Please comment. If you would like to share your story of Sankofa, please do that. If you've heard a different version or a different story, please share that below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, all the things that you're supposed to do to support people on YouTube. Do that, and I look forward to sharing space with you guys and just coming back here and sharing some of the things that we have going on. Peace.